Responding to sexual harassment, Red Stripe implements new policy to protect women. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Kenil Gale. Thanks for joining us this week. It's the Me Too era, and the world's coolest beer company is implementing a new policy to protect promo girls. More on that in a bit, but right now let's get to some of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk. The government is cutting $14 billion in taxes. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark made the announcement in his inaugural budget speech Thursday afternoon. They're reducing or abolishing 6 taxes effective April 1. This includes the much criticized minimum business tax, which was introduced in 2014 as part of a tax package under the IMF agreement. Dr. Clark says the current business tax legislation disincentivizes small businesses, encourages informality, and limits the country's economic growth.
The minimum business tax imposes a tax of $60,000 a year on every company without regard to whether it's struggling or performing, whether it is a startup or it is mature, whether it is making a loss or it is making a profit. It is an indiscriminate tax that discourages business formation and activity. The business owner just starting their catering business or their small farm or their cleaning business, before they even have $1 of revenue, they become liable to pay the minimum business tax. That is no way to encourage small business.
Dr. Clark argued that it's not fair for small businesses to pay $60,000 annually. He said some of these businesses may not even generate this amount in sales, which often accounts for these businesses staying below the radar and operating informally. He said come next month, these businesses will no longer have to pay the amount.
Business is in trouble. It was going good, but you lose 2 contracts. The government still wants the minimum business tax. Mr. Speaker, it is so indiscriminate, it applies whether the company is active or is dormant. Mr. Speaker, we want to encourage incorporation, and we want the holding of assets in corporate form to be an attractive option. The principle of hitting dormant companies with a minimum business tax works against a Jamaica that wants to grow. For this reason, Mr. Speaker, effective April 1st, we will abolish the minimum business tax.
Abolishing the minimum business tax is projected to save those affected over $1 billion collectively. The government is also abolishing the asset tax payable by non-financial institutions, which will result in a $1.8 billion loss to the government's coffers. Additionally, they are increasing the GCT threshold to $10 million, up from $3 million. This will cost them $750 million. The biggest loss to government revenues will be $6.6 billion as a result of the replacement of all ad valorem stamp duty, and they'll lose another $3.4 billion by reducing the rate of transfer taxes for properties from 5% to 2%. Meanwhile, Minister Clark said the country is transitioning and a new Jamaica is being formed. The finance minister said the economy is moving in the right direction and the country will no longer need any financial support from the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Jamila Maitland tells us more.
Dr. Clark says the Andrew Holness administration is positioning the country for further economic independence from international financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The finance minister said the country has had 16 arrangements with the IMF that lasted 32 years. The final SBA is expected to end in June. Now he says the country stands ready to manage its financial resources.
This dependence is inconsistent with the Jamaican identity. It's inconsistent with our identity of a proud and independent people with a message for the world. Yet for my generation, all we have ever known is life in and out of structural adjustment programs with the international community. It falls to my generation, our generation, to change that.
Dr. Clark noted that 2.5 years into the latest SBA, the country has not used any of the $1.6 billion available under the agreement. He says this is evidence of the sound fiscal and monetary policies that have been guiding the country.
Jamaica has had no need to draw down and borrow funds from the IMF. Jamaica, Mr. Speaker, is moving in the right direction. Our economic reform program has delivered for Jamaica, is delivering for Jamaica, and will continue to deliver for Jamaica.
However, he says economic independence does not mean shying away from global assistance or opportunities from international agencies or other countries. Rather, he says it's the ability to manage the country's economy and make decisive fiscal and monetary policies.
Economic independence does not mean a withdrawal from the global economic and financial system. It does not mean that we cannot benefit from financial flows and technological know-how. But it does mean that we responsibly take our destiny into our own hands. This is important, Mr. Speaker, as otherwise we fit into the vision of others for ourselves, and we'll not have the chance to pursue our own dreams. While we may be at a certain stage of development right now, our vision is not to be hewers of wood nor drawers of stone.
In the meantime, Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett told Tuesday's meeting of Parliament's Standing Finance Committee that the 2019-2020 fiscal year will see the Tourism Enhancement Fund, the TEF, focusing its spending on boosting the small and medium-sized tourism enterprises, SMTEs, and enhancing security in tourist areas. Here's more.
The Tourism Ministry says it will be managing its finances a little different during the 2019-2020 fiscal year. The ministry says spending will be divided into two main categories. These are tourism promotions and tourism development. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says there will be targeted spending in a number of key areas in line with the ministry's 5 in 5x5 strategy. He says training is the first area to be bolstered, with 650 students across 33 schools now enrolled in the 2-year associate's degree in tourism management program. The ministry's next key area of focus is the local supply chain integration program, which the minister says should have more Jamaicans benefiting from the tourism dollar.
We have some very exciting and innovative programs that we are going to be introducing in this budget year with regards to how to get a number of small operators, the small and medium tourism enterprises, the SMTE as we call them, to become a big part of the supply chain and to earn more, primarily around the resort areas, in Negril, around Namprel and those areas, in Montego Bay, around Lilliput and those areas, in St. Anne, around Miami Bay and those areas and so on. So we get more of those small barbers and small hairdressers and the bars and so on to come up to standard so that the visitor can move across from the hotel over there and to leave the dollar in the destination.
Safety and security within the tourism industry was a major issue in 2018, and Minister Bartlett says the ministry will be paying more attention to that area in the upcoming fiscal year.
A big part of their activity will be safety and security for the destination. And so a lot of effort is going to be placed on that, is going to be placed on ensuring that the public education with regards to understanding the rights of the visitor and the psychological distance that must be there between the workers of the industry and the guests, and a whole new architecture, as it were, in relation to that.
Moving on now, in a bid to stand up to sexual harassment, Red Stripe is implementing a new policy that it hopes will help protect brand promoters when they're doing their jobs. Here's more. With the Me Too movement thrusting the issue of sexual harassment into the spotlight, global beer brewing giant Red Stripe is taking a stand. Diane Ashton Smith says with no clear legislation to deal with sexual harassment in Jamaica, the company is implementing its own policy.
We expect our employees, our management, individuals working for Heineken through a third-party contract, or suppliers and or business partners to respect human rights in line with this policy and to ensure that our work complies with our company's commitment to human rights.
She says the company is taking steps to address the issue of sexual harassment of brand promoters.
We do not tolerate physical, violent, verbal, sexual, or psychological harassment, bullying, abuse, or threats. We do not tolerate acts in the workplace, nor in any work-related circumstance outside the workplace, such as work-related events. It is based on these values, what we stand for as a company, and our commitment to human rights, that we've laid out a new brand promoter policy, which establishes the principles and guidelines for the deployment of brand promoters.
The Red Stripe executive argues that the job of brand promoter should be seen as an attractive one that offers opportunities for growth.
We know and we firmly believe that promoting our brands should be an attractive profession for both men and women, as Stacey shared. We want to give more brand promoters the opportunity to develop their careers and progress into other roles within and outside of our company. We also want to build more gender diverse teams. Our brand promoters over time, that certainly better reflects the broad diversity of our own business.
The policy was developed with the input of various stakeholders.
Everybody understands what a brand promoter is. In Jamaica, we call them promo girls, right? These are those individuals who promote our brands to our customers, to our consumers at events. They're the ones who do sampling, and you'll see them in supermarkets. And this is not unique just to Red Stripe. So it is about a safe working environment. This is our first principle. Safety comes first, as in keeping with our behavior. Safety comes first. We want to ensure that those who are employed by us and through our third parties, they get fair wages. We want to ensure too that there is no harassment when they are engaged to deploy these activities. We want to ensure too that there is transportation provided for these individuals who are representing our brands. We also want to ensure that there are decent uniforms for those individuals who are promoting our brands. We also want to ensure that they consume none of our products while executing our duties. We have a unique product and we know excessive consumption, what that can do. And so we want to ensure that they operate in a safe way, just as when you operate a car or heavy machinery or taking medication.
Meanwhile, Red Stripe's managing director, Ricardo Nuncio, says while the change was difficult, it was necessary.
It's not okay to leave things as they were. As Heineken, we realized that something needed to change. And you have a huge internal debate. And things like this are never easy because this is a very important change. And you hear words like, but it's cultural. It's okay. It's part of how it is. You have to come here to understand. Go to Carnival, no? So you hear all of this to kind of say it's okay to keep things as they are, but it's not okay. It's really not okay. And we really took it serious to say something needs to change, and what better way to make that change than be amongst the companies that are promoting that change first.
Company news comes up next, then later, could a cure for HIV be on the horizon? We'll tell you why a stem cell treatment has renewed hope. More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Here's this week's company news.
Revenues for Kingston Wharves Limited increased last year as the company's domestic traffic increased. The group recorded revenues of $7.25 billion for 2018, an increase of $884 million over what was registered in 2017. KWL says this performance was driven by the growth in domestic containers handled and the continued expansion of its regional hub for motor vehicles. In the meantime, streamlined activities at its Total Logistics facility and the KWL Global Auto Logistics Center resulted in the group realizing revenue revenue growth in the logistics segment of $460 million or 31%. KWL knows that the total logistics facility is now a full-service warehousing and logistics center, and the Global Auto Logistics Center is a secure local and international motor vehicle storage, inspection, and delivery center. Honeybun says the results for the 2018 financial year show a 5% increase in revenue when compared to 2017. At the end of 2018, revenue stood at $1.3 billion, a slight increase from the $1.2 billion recorded in 2017. The Honeybun directors note that the value of the company has increased steadily over the years from where it started at $284 million in 2012. The net book value of the company closed 2018 at $668 million. Honeybun says the strategy moving forward is to continue building on production capacity, improve efficiency, and continue to invest in technology as the foundation for growth. In the meantime, product development in 2019 will focus on the reduction of sugar in its products, the use of indigenous ingredients, and reduced calories per serving. The Mayberry Group says equity investments made in 2018 paid off handsomely, resulting in an almost doubling of the company's net book value per share. Net book value per share ended 2018 at $11.12, a 42.7% increase over the corresponding period in 2017. This, the company says, was due mostly to an increase in equity investments of $5.9 billion. Total comprehensive income jumped some $1.3 billion, ending the period at $3.7 billion compared to $2.4 billion for the corresponding period in 2017. The group ended its 2018 analysis by pointing out that its capital base continues its robust growth and remained in good standing.
Let's take a look at how some of the major stock markets around the world ended the week. When you come back, more of the week's top business stories, so stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. More news now. There is a new date for the by-election in Eastern Portland. A media release from the Office of the Prime Minister, OPM, on Monday said after further consideration and consultation, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has decided to move the by-election date to Thursday, April 4. Nomination day will be on Friday, May 15. The OPM release noted that this announcement supersedes the one made on Friday, March 1. The law states that nomination day shall be at least 5 clear days after the announcement of an election. So the new date takes into account Ash Wednesday, which was a public holiday. With Ash Wednesday being an excluded day, the nomination and election dates had to be revised. Meanwhile, in responding to the change, opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips said the botched attempt by the Prime Minister to set an election date is an act of gross incompetence and ultimately an expression of disrespect to the Jamaican people in general and the voters of East Portland in particular. In a statement to the media, Dr. Phillips said this unprecedented act boggles the mind as to the quality of legal advice being provided to the Prime Minister. He called on Prime Minister Holness to provide a proper explanation as to how an election date could have been announced before a thorough check for compliance with provisions of the Representation of the People Act. Minister of Energy Favour Williams says there are no illegal underwater connections at Petrojam. She says a report from the Jamaica Defence Force Coast Guard shows no indication of alterations to any of the 23 pipelines. More in this report.
Energy Minister Favour Williams says all 23 underwater gas pipelines at Petrojam are secure. Minister Williams says the JDF's Coast Guard team conducted a one-week diving investigation into the allegations of illegal gas connections at the oil refinery.
The Coast Guard of the JDF completed their mission and returned a report to the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology in a letter dated February 22, 2019, to indicate the dates of their dive mission and the other technical aspects of the dive. The letter indicated that there were no illegal attachments identified on any of the 23 pipelines surveyed.
Head of the JDF Coast Guard, Lieutenant Commander Prescott, says the assessment was conducted thoroughly with 14 divers. They found no illegal attachment.
So all the pipelines were surveyed visually and by hand, where the divers basically felt along the pipeline to detect any anomaly, any attachments that would have been there. At the end of the period, there were assessed to be no illegal attachments, no unauthorized attachments, nor any indication of any such attachment during the period of our investigation.
The investigations were triggered after the Auditor General's report in December found that $5 billion worth of oil at the refinery was unaccounted for, leading to allegations of theft. Additionally, there have been reports of illegal gas stations in nearby communities. The police's Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Division, CTOC, arrested a 76-year-old woman in Greenwich Farm over the weekend for operating an illegal gas station. The police say they seized 14 45-gallon drums of petroleum, 12 empty drums, and a gas pump. In the meantime, Minister Williams says the government is still deliberating on the future of Petrojam. She says an enterprise team is conducting a study into the viability of the oil refinery.
So they're conducting their evaluation currently, and we're expecting to get that report in May of this year. Their remit is wide in terms of coming back to Cabinet with all the options that are available so that Cabinet could make the deliberations about the future of Petrojam.
Scientist and entrepreneur Jordan Freeman is the winner of Total's Start-Upper of the Year award. Here's more.
Jordan Freeman is founder and CEO of JA Bioplastic, which seeks to offer a natural alternative form of plastic that's compostable and biodegradable. It can also be safely consumed by animals and will not contribute to plastic pollution. He wins €12,500, or about 1.8 million Jamaican dollars, along with several hours of mentorship. Freeman says he believes science and entrepreneurship together can revolutionize Jamaica.
I'm a biotechnologist, a scientist, and one of the things that affect Jamaica and the Science Corps, our science-based personnel, is that when we leave university, there are no jobs for science-based students, and they call me a hybrid. I want to mix science and business. I believe that we can be very great entrepreneurs.
He adds that Jamaica can become a production hub.
I do believe that we can revolutionize Jamaica, and not just because there's a plastic ban issue, but just like what Prelab is doing with energy, solving these problems from whichever faculty you are a part of. We want to be that young energy that Startup is fueling for the future to provide entrepreneurs and Jamaica ecosystem much more viable and to commercialize and to be a production hub, not just to consume what is out there, but to produce here. It can't be always agriculture.
Yakini Wallen Bryan of the Prelabs Limited placed second in the competition. The Prelabs is a smart plug that users can use to control and monitor their electrical appliances and usage from their smartphone or computer. While George Henry placed third for Tickies, a school behavior app. The winner of the Top Female Entrepreneur Award went to Brittany Singh Williams, CEO of Spark Education.
When we come back, a major milestone in the fight against HIV. More on that after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. A London hospital patient is the second person in the world to be cleared of the HIV virus. The male patient has achieved sustained remission from HIV after being treated at Hammersmith Hospital in West London.
A milestone in efforts to cure HIV. A team of researchers in London say a man appears free of the virus after receiving a stem cell transplant from an HIV-resistant donor. The patient, who was treated for blood cancer, has been in remission from the virus for 18 months and is no longer taking antiretroviral drugs.
We waited 16 months before stopping in the post-transplant period just to make sure that the cancer was in remission, the patient was well, and at that point we stopped the treatment. And so we're now 18 months in, and we're confident that this will be a long-term remission.
Researchers say it's too early to tell whether the London patient has been cured. It's the second time a patient treated this way has ended up in remission from HIV. 10 years ago, Timothy Brown received a bone marrow transplant from a donor with a natural immunity to the virus, a gene mutation found in less than 1% of people of Northern European descent.
Yes, I would like to meet the London patient very much. I would say take your time in if you want to become public, do it. It's been very useful for science and for giving hope to HIV-positive people.
Most experts say the approach is not practical for treating most people with HIV. Such transplants are dangerous and have failed in other patients, leading to deadly infections. However, they may one day help to find a cure.
And that's our show for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.